Okay, I'm Will from SUPboarder, and today we are taking a look at this crazy hybrid board from Aqua Marina. It's called the Cascade. It's 11.2 by 35 by 8 inches. And to be honest, I wasn't that excited when we first got our hands on this and Aqua Marina sent it over. I was like, this isn't a real stand-up paddleboard. This is too much of a kayak. This is too much of something that's just not going to work. But then when I unpacked it, pumped it up and got on the water, I actually started to get a little bit excited by the concept. And I kind of saw how and where there's really great applications for this board. Okay, so let's take a look at what's included in the package with the Aqua Marina Cascade. Well, firstly, it comes with a standard Aqua Marina bag. This is the XL version. It's plenty big enough to get the board in. You've got 2 fins, one for the center, one for the rear, which is cool. You've got this convertible SUP kayak paddle, which has got the little things to stop your drips and stuff. And then obviously, you get the paddle to turn into a stand-up paddleboard paddle. Relatively lightweight Aqua Marina leash. Obviously it comes with its instruction manual and some repair kit. And it also comes with this pretty funky, probably one of the best I've ever seen, Kayak Seats, which has a cool zip system to set it up. And also includes some nice bottle holders on the back. This attaches to the board with some nice Velcro, which is pretty neat. Also got this spray skirt, so you can really make sure your kayaking experience is a little bit better than normal. Keep the water off you. And obviously it comes with its 2-way Aqua Marina pumper. And the Aqua Marina Cascade also comes with a huge amount of single-use plastic, which really needs to be sorted out. Come on Aqua Marina, let's sort your packaging out. Okay, so taking a look at the board, the way this is built is it's got an open middle chamber, which allows you to get low in the paddleboard, and it has this separate small drop stitch panel that will fit in here to give that stiffness when you're paddling it. So there's some quite interesting things going on with this board in terms of its construction. It's also got this sort of edge to put your spray deck on, Velcro here to be able to attach your kayak seat, and the D-rings for the kayak seat are right back here. So for the first time you can have your on-deck kayak seat separate from your standing area, but also this board allows you to sit in the board when you're paddling. What do Aqua Marina mean by 3-in-1? Well, this board you can stand up paddle, which is what we love to do, but you can also sit in kayak it, so sit within the board like a traditional kayak, or you can sit on top and kayak it, which it has a seat for. So if you sit inside, it has the spray deck, and if you sit on top, it has that nice looking kayak seat. So it gives you loads of options. And what I really like, having just set this up, is that you can pack all of those accessories on the board, so you can go out and do one sport and switch around to either of those 3 sports whenever you want. Right, so I'm going to go on a paddle on this. I've actually got all 3 different sports ready to go on the board. So I've got my spray deck down here, I've got my kayak seat folded down, I've even kept my water bottle on there, I've got my spare piece of my paddle, and I'm ready to go. So I'm going to go out in stand-up paddleboard mode first, which is cool. It's actually quite a good day for testing this because it's a bit windy, and that's going to allow me to show you where I think some of the benefits of a board like this lie. Okay, so paddling this board, one of the first things you notice is how stable it is. This thing is incredibly stable. I think it's partly down to the fact that you're standing low down, but also at 35 wide, it's incredibly wide. When you're paddling it, you do feel the width a little bit, but it's not as slow as I expected. You notice more about how you have to maneuver your paddle around the side, around the hips of that board, because your paddle's hitting the side. But as a 35-inch wide board, it really doesn't paddle that badly. I'm just cruising off downwind. It feels really nice and smooth. So although this is an 8-inch board, which if you were standing on the top of that, it would feel quite disattached from the water and a little bit unstable, you're standing probably just an inch from the water, so it really helps you maintain that stability. So I'm paddling a crosswind now because this is an 8-inch board. It can really get affected by the wind. It doesn't seem to be too bad. Got big gusts coming in now, and I can keep it tracking quite nicely. It feels like the board's maybe a little bit heavier, so it's sitting down in the water. And you know, I'm only just under 70 kilos, so I'm actually quite impressed with how it paddles, considering it's an 8-inch board. So I should probably explain why I felt a little bit negative towards this board. I think with hybrid boards and SUPs that you can kayak on, it feels like sometimes it's not very good kayaking, and sometimes the D-rings and the bits and pieces that get put on the board to allow you to kayak it kind of compromise its performance when paddling. But what I really liked about this board is that it is very, very versatile. I think I prefer this to a traditional stand-up paddleboard with a kayak seat attachment, just because it's a little bit better thought out and it probably works a little bit better. And I can really see some of the advantages of where this board can be useful for paddlers. I really, really like how you can attach and leave your kayak seat on this board the whole time, which allows you to have the option to, if you need to, go kayaking during your paddleboard session. Now, I would always encourage people to learn to be able to paddle into the wind and develop those skills, but some people it will take longer to learn and you might not have the confidence to do that. And taking this kayak seat with you can give you that confidence that if you do end up downwind, you might be able to change modes and get back upwind. It also gives you the ability, if you get tired, you've got another way of paddling, another option which uses different muscles, which can get you home safely. I really like it how you've got this open deck, this cutaway area where you stand, because when you're paddling with perhaps children or people who are less confident, particularly children that are less confident, the surround that you get in this board really does help make them feel more confident. I think a lot of people might look at this board and think, oh, that's not a stand-up paddleboard, this is a joke, and I must admit I kind of thought the same myself. But what the innovation in these hybrid boards, I think applied in some other areas of stand-up paddleboarding, is going to be really, really exciting. This cutaway drop-down deck, I think, has loads and loads of applications and is a really great innovation in inflatable paddleboarding. I can see lots of great applications for enclosed areas, for touring, so you can get the equipment within your board rather than on top of your board, which really makes SUP touring a lot more exciting for me if you can pack your board more effectively. So yes, it's different, but actually perhaps different is sometimes quite interesting. Okay, so I've paddled downwind for about 1 kilometre standing up, and now I've got a relatively strong headwind to paddle back into. So this is a really good example of how this board's multi-sport options allow you to give you options when you're out paddling. Now, the paddle home would be quite tough standing up, but I'm going to try out one of the kayak options and see how it goes. I'm going to sit in the board and see how that goes. So let's get it set up. So it's just a quick job of switching the stand-up paddleboard paddle to a kayak paddle. Simple as that. I've added in the second fin underneath the middle of the board. I've got my skirt out and I'm going to go kayaking. So one of the reasons that kayaking on a stand-up paddleboard doesn't work particularly well is because kayaking really you should be using your legs a lot to create the power in the stroke. You brace your legs and your knees against the boat, which allows you to get power in your stroke. Now, when you're sitting within this, you can use your legs a little bit to brace the board, so I think you can get quite an effective kayaking stroke. You can't do anything with your knees, but it is a little bit better than sitting on top of a board in those traditional kayak crossover SUP seats that you see. Now this kayak with its centre fin has got incredible tracking, very easy to keep in a straight line, nice to use. So obviously when you're in your kayak you could capsize, which is always a bit of a concern when you're wearing your skirt because it might trap you in, but it's got a nice handle here. Let's see if it works. Lovely bubbly. So now I want to try out the sit on top kayak mode. I've put together the seat. It's very easy to zip up. I really like how this seat can be attached to the board at all times. I've just literally flipped it up and zipped either side up, and I'm ready to go. I've packed my skirt away, and I'm going to see how it feels with the sit on top kayak seat. Okay, so the kayak seat is pretty good success, really. It's nice and comfortable, really laid back, but you definitely do notice you can't put as much power down in your stroke as you would do when you're sitting in the boat. But the benefit of that kayak seat is that you have got loads of space in the deck here to perhaps have 1, 2, maybe 3 children in there, which I think could make this a really nice versatile kind of toy for on your boat or at the beach. Just gives you loads of options. Really nice way to get kids involved on the water. Tips obviously of being in a kayak is that you get a wet bum. But what's pretty cool about this board, which helps solve that, is that the deck in the bottom obviously is slightly higher up, and what you find is that the water collects just down here, so it kind of keeps it away from your bum, which is pretty neat. Once it gets too full up, obviously you'll have to empty it, but that's quite nice little touch. And it's got the little bung in there, so when you do fill up you can just pull the bung open when it's on dry land, obviously, and it will drain out. So I'm actually going back into sit-in kayak mode because I think it's much more superior paddling mode, and it showed me that you don't really need to use the skirt unless you're worried about getting a little bit wet or getting cold legs. I've left the kayak seat up behind me, still there, so I can change mode if I want. You can even have a little kid sat on there. Very versatile bit of kit this. Still don't like having a wet bum though. I know why I love paddleboarding. I never get a wet bum paddleboarding. So what about the pros, cons and value for money for the Aqua Marina Cascade? Well, I've enjoyed paddling it. I think really this board, as a paddleboard, it paddles okay. I think it's not as slow as I thought it would be. I think that's down to its nice pulled in nose and tail. At 35 wide you'd think it'd be a complete dog, but actually it paddles okay. As a kayak or a sit on top, it does the job okay, but it's never going to be a replacement for real kayaking. But the way that it allows you to do all those 3 sports, have all the equipment for those 3 sports on the board at the same time, is a real benefit to me. It's incredibly versatile and I really like that about this board. So if you're looking for something that isn't going to be an amazing paddleboard and isn't going to be an amazing kayak or sit on top kayak, then the Aqua Marina Cascade is probably a really good option for you. if you just want to have family fun, if you want to have kids on the board that are maybe not very water confident, they can feel a bit more secure within the board, that's really good. I also really like the fact that we've got a board here that has got a cutout inside it, which I think is going to be a really interesting area for brands to explore with SUP touring and exploring, because I think that would bring some really great innovations into the market. Cons, well, I've kind of talked about it already. It's not going to be amazing at doing anything, but if you're happy about that, that's fine. I'd really like to see Aqua Marina sort out their single-use plastic in their packaging. That's really poor, but in general the board seems to be well made. It's stiff, and at about 840 pounds, depending on where you buy it, it's relatively good value for money. It's an expensive paddleboard at that price, but because you get all three sports, I would say it's a pretty good buy. So I hope you've enjoyed that little vlog review, insight into the Aqua Marina Cascade 11.2 by 35. I've had a really good time using it. I think it's got a lot of versatility. If you've used it, or if you've got some thoughts or opinions on this board, please comment below and review it on supboardermag.com. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you on another Supboarder video real soon.